insightful. This one will be an educational episode, I hope, of no party preference.
The way you said that implies that the previous episodes weren't.
Oh no, the one we just did about Alex Jones was definitely not educational. I mean, maybe it was educational to some, but it was meant to be more of a rant than anything. Like
okay.
This one actually has legitimate, things I had to look up because I got very interested in like tariffs. And obviously, I mean, for people that are out there that, yes, this has been a major thing that's been talked about of how to lower the national debt and all this other shit. So I just was curious as to like, okay, I kind of know what a tariff is, but like, what the fuck is a tariff exactly? Like, what is the definition of it? What do they do? How do they function? Just to like talk about it. And then some historical examples of that have now shaped my opinion into what it is, into what this opinion is about tariffs.
So, isn't it as simple as like saying, if I bought shirts from China, right, and they came in, I mean, before they used to cost $10, right, if they were imported, right? Yeah. Now they're $15.
Kind of.
They come in at $15. It's like, all right, well, me, the person that's selling these shirts in the U.S., I need to mark up the price to $10 additional dollars so I can make.
Yeah, kind of. Basically, yeah. It is. That's a very simple way to break it down. But before we get into that, I do the plugs real quick.
Oh, fuck. Well, I forgot about that.
Go to YouTube, Game Rage Magazine. Like, comment, and subscribe. Especially subscribe. We need 18 subscribers. Help us out on YouTube. Also, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, Twitter/X Game Rage Mag. You can follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram. And go check out the All Gas No Trash podcast. Okay, so yes, you are correct that at the basic, very simple level, a tariff is just that. It's essentially the Wikipedia dictionary definition is that it is a tax imposed by a government of a country or a supranational union on imports or exports of goods. And it is essentially a source of revenue for governments, and it can also be a form of regulation, which I never even actually thought about that. That it can be a form of regulation, and it can be to encourage or safeguard like the domestic industries that we have here in the United States, right? Because if you use cars for examples, if you have this huge tariff or tax on something that's being sent here, like a car, like let's say if you tax the shit out of BMWs that aren't made here, and you say, all right, there's a $20,000 tariff for each BMW that they ship here, then yes, that would encourage BMW to then open a plant here to, I mean, in theory, that it would encourage them to open a plant here to make the cars here, because no one will buy a BMW if it's $20,000 marked up from what, like the current price is.
Or buy American.
Right. They would force people to just buy American cars that don't have this insane markup. One of the things that, and also there's one in the fridge for you if you want it. The last one till I go to the store tomorrow and buy a new one. Anyways, when it comes to tariffs, because I guess what kind of got this whole thing started was like my dad was telling me about this shit, and we were having. And yes, I will say this right now: my father's an idiot. All right, I've no questions about it. He is like diehard Trump guy, and he loves them, and Trump can do no wrong, right? And so we were arguing about the economic policy that had took place and what was incoming. And one of the things we were talking about was that, how he says how Trump is going to bring the government spending in line, and how it's going to be done essentially through tariffs. It's going to lower our taxes, and it's going to, like I said, save us a bunch of money and also wipe out the debt, right? Well, one of the things that I learned about tariffs historically are that they're like basically the most archaic form of taxation, or one of the most archaic and medieval forms of taxation, because it's essentially a double tax, or maybe even a triple tax if you really look at it, because that same thing, like let's say like you were using the t-shirt thing as an example, right? Let's say a shirt right now costs $10, okay? The Chinese send it here, the guy buys it from China for $5. He marks it up to 10 so he can make his money, right? Then the government says, okay, we're putting a tariff on all shirts that come from China, and that tariff is now $5. So now this guy's got to pay 10. So he's like, shit, I still need to make $5 on this. So fuck it, I'll mark it up to 15, or maybe I'll even mark it up to 20 and pull extra money out of it. Who knows?
It passes the fucking cost to the consumer.
Right. And then also, one of the things that a lot of people kind of don't understand is that when the market, the businesses that run things in the car industry is a perfect example of this. When they see that the market will bear a cost, they will keep it for as long as they can. And there's no incentive for them to lower the cost. If you look at car prices over the last 20 years, they've just gone exponentially up. I mean, ridiculous. I bought basically like in 2011, which was 10, 15, 14 years ago, 15, coming on 15 years ago, I bought a fully loaded F-150 for like under 30 grand. I mean, I think I paid like 26 grand for this thing, like fully fucking loaded, right? If I were to go buy that same truck right now, it's like fucking 60 grand, all right? And over the course of the last 15 years, the prices have just slowly, steadily increased. COVID did fuck us. COVID fucked us because, shit, there was a little bit of a demand, and the auto manufacturers with cars said, ooh, we can fucking do this. And it wasn't, yes, the auto manufacturers increased the price. The local dealers also threw these crazy markups on shit. And the auto manufacturers allowed them to do it, so they're just as culpable in my opinion. But anyways, there were difficulties with getting shipments in, so it made the demand go up. Well, guess what? Now, the cost of cars is still basically the same. Yes, you're not paying these exorbitant $10,000 markup fees, but this is 4 years after COVID's, been basically, happened. And there's still dealers that are charging markup fees. Like, they're not as exorbitant as they were, but they're still doing it because people, once they see you'll pay, your dumb ass will pay for it, they're just going to keep hitting you with this and say, well, that's the cost of it now. And so that's kind of how it is like with tariffs. And so if a tariff gets put into place and then say a new administration comes in and like removes that tariff, well, guess what? Now this thing is still, this shirt's still going to be $15, even though the guy's now buying it only for $5. That's just sort of how most of these things go through when it comes in business, right? So with tariffs, I was looking because I was just curious, like historically, what tariffs have done, and I found one that was very fucking depressing. Literally, it was greatly depressing because there was this tariff that took place in 1930. It was called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and basically what it did is it put a huge tariff on 20,000 or so different items that were coming in and being imported into the country. And essentially what it did is it was the highest tariff that had ever been established by the United States government in its existence. And so, except for one, there was one tariff in 1828 that was a little higher, but this one was pretty goddamn close. But what it did is it basically reduced the imports and exports of American goods by 67% during the Great Depression, when that was already kind of starting. And there's a very large consensus of economists and historians that view this as being really one of the key factors that worsened and made the Great Depression last as long as it did, was because of the simple fact that we put in these tariffs. Other countries that were affected by this, they put in tariffs. So essentially, if your country starts going through an economic decline and then you put in all these tariffs, everybody's going to tariff you, you're going to tariff everybody, and now your imports and exports are just fucking stalling. And if those are stalling, well, people aren't going to be able to get shit, which is going to make prices go through the roof. And then secondarily, if businesses can't export things that they're making, well, they're going to reduce their workforce that's making those things. So when you're already in economically sketchy times, putting in tariffs is probably a way to fuck those times even harder and make them worse. And one of the things with talking about the upcoming tax plans about, hey, we're going to lower taxes, right? Cool. That's understandable. Our current federal debt is like $35 trillion. All right. I think I got to pull up the debt clock because I love this fucking debt clock thing. Because it tells you the real time info of the fucking national debt. Right now, it's currently sitting at $35.9 trillion is what our national debt is at. And they have this little feature on here. This is just a projection based on several economists and several factors that they're projecting are going to happen. I don't know if it's true, but if you look at 2028, which is 4 years from now, our budget deficit our national debt is going to be $50 trillion, right? And they're essentially looking at, okay, during the last administration that Trump had, he set the record for adding to the national debt, okay, during his 4 years. That was immediately erased by Biden, who in his last 4 years now set the new record for fucking adding to the debt. And if this comes true, that will be a new record set to the debt in 4 years, because that's essentially going to raise it $15 trillion. They both each added about, I think, like between 6 and 8 between the two of them over the last 8 years to the deficit, $6 or $8 trillion. And so if over the next 4 years we're going to add $15 trillion, okay, where are we going to get the money to pay for that if we're cutting taxes? And so that's where, we're going to get it through tariffs. Well, one of the sneaky things about tariffs is that we had talked about, well, that just makes all the prices go up. So say us in our whatever tax bracket we're in, let's say we get a 15% tax break, right? Cool, that's great. And we're only paying, taxes, we're only paying like 8% or whatever of our income into taxes, let's say. Cool, that's nice. But overall, if items, because of these tariffs, now everyday items that I need and have to use, if those things are now going to cost 30% more, depending on what tariffs are being charged, now I'm actually in the hole. I would have just been happier paying the fucking same taxes and not having that go up or whatever. Just keep the taxes the same. But in the end of the day, this will just end up costing me more as like a taxpayer if tariffs go into place instead of, raising taxes or whatever. So really, it sucks. Listen, I hate taxes, but I mean, at a certain point, it may almost be easier or cheaper for us to just say, hey, let's just raise taxes like 1%, right, on everybody. Personally, I think that it shouldn't be a percent. I think it should be percentages, but it also should really be looked at as like, hey, man, if you're making fucking over $1 million a year, or $1 billion a year, you should really be paying some more fucking percentages and taxes. And also not getting a lot of the tax breaks that exist, because that's what happens. We get these tariffs, and then again, sure, the rich guy is going to have to pay an extra 20% for his French champagne or whatever, right? But they don't care about that. That's not eating into any major percentage of their income because they don't need it. Us down at the bottom, tariffs tend to fuck the people at the bottom. And they tend to fuck people on both sides. Now, I don't know what other countries have the need for goods that we make. Likely computer chips are probably going to be the big thing. Like the computer stuff, the technology stuff is the major thing that we have. And also, it's very interesting because how are they going to do these tariffs on like American products that are made in a foreign country, right? Like, all of our phones are made in fucking foreign countries. None of them are made here. Like whether you have Apple, Samsung, fucking LG, fucking Google, whatever. None of that shit's made in America. It's all made in China, pretty much, or whatever foreign country of your choice that's cheap to have shit made. So will a tariff be applied to that because it's not made here? Then okay, cool. Now everything we use is going to essentially be brought back because or go up in price. And that's what sucks, is it's not going to encourage, the tariffs are not going to encourage companies to bring things back to America, because when they look at their bottom line, it's still cheaper to pay the tariff and pass on to the consumer and pay someone 80 cents an hour to make these fucking phones or whatever you want to say, whatever the product is, than it is to bring the products over here and pay people an actual living wage to produce the products. Because sure, if there's a 10% tariff on every single new iPhone that comes in, Apple's just going to go, cool, guess what, everybody? iPhones just went up 10 fucking percent. They're not going to bother bringing it back here and saying, oh, we're just going to, we're going to make them here now, guys, because, that would increase the price of iPhones probably by about 50%. So, not that I'm saying phones and shit like that are cheap, but there's a lot of markup in that stuff. And if you just add tariffs into the mix, it's going to just I feel like it's just going to make it go up even higher. So that's where we're at with tariffs. Tariffs have been used in the past. Mainly they've been punitive to countries that pissed us off, but it hasn't been like a blanket thing. Tariffs are a form of economic warfare. That is a fact. So we'll see where it goes in the future with tariffs, but in the past, tariffs as a general economic policy have not gone well for us. So I don't know what this will happen for in the future, but at the end of the day, it's interesting to talk about and discuss nonetheless. So that's pretty much all I had about tariffs. But what did you have anything to say?
No.
No, I don't know. Anyways, all right, well, fuck. That's it. Fuck it. We'll end it here. So anyways, go to Game Rage Magazine on YouTube. Also go to Game Rage Magazine on Instagram and TikTok. Also go to Game Rage Mag on Twitter/X. Additionally, you can go follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram. And you can follow Frank at anime_syndicate_podcast and get all your latest and greatest anime content from there. All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one.